Hey everybody, my name is Dr. Scott Giacomucci. I'm the director and founder of the Phoenix Center for Experiential Trauma Therapy, which is located in Media, Pennsylvania. Today I wanted to talk about how complex PTSD develops and specifically the role of complex trauma. So CPTSD symptoms don't just appear out of nowhere. It's really developed and built over time through chronic and often invisible trauma. So complex PTSD is a bit different than classical PTSD, and complex trauma is a bit different than regular trauma in that it's more focused on repeated and reoccurring experiences of trauma or long-term exposure to things like abuse or neglect or torture or captivity or just traumatic relationships, adversity. So classical PTSD was more focused on adults that experienced usually single incident traumas, whereas complex PTSD is more focused on when we experience layers and layers of reoccurring experiences or layers and layers of different types of trauma, often throughout our entire lifespan. But usually complex PTSD symptoms emerge from trauma that happens in childhood. Attachment wounds, insecure or disorganized, chaotic attachments with our primary caregivers, oftentimes our parents, whose primary jobs is to nurture and protect us. And when we don't experience that, it really traumatizes us. And it creates layers and layers of memories and experiences of neglect or abandonment or invalidation or the absence of protection or nurturing that really impacts our brains and our mind's ability to develop in healthy ways. And especially when we experience more active traumas, complex traumas like abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, or any kind of violence, when it's reoccurring, this is what we call complex trauma. So developmental trauma really causes our brain and our nervous system to develop under threat, that we're just kids. We're growing, our body's developing, our nervous system is developing, our brain is really developing still. And if we're under constant sense of threat or disrupted sense of safety or anxiety or hyperarousal, or we're constantly on guard, wondering when we're going to get hit again, or when something's going to be thrown at us, or if we're going to be abused again. This really impacts the brain and the body, the nervous system's ability to develop in a normal, healthy way, especially when there's no safe adult in our lives. If there's no safe adult, then we don't have that sense of co-regulation that comes from being able to seek out support or seek out protection or seek out comfort from adult in our lives. And this can be really damaging for children. In a lot of the research, they're finding that as long as a kid has one healthy, attuned adult in their life, that it provides a really strong preventative factor from adversity turning into PTSD or complex PTSD. So having at least one healthy adult, one attachment figure, really can prevent trauma from turning into post-traumatic stress disorder. So complex trauma, again, is different than regular trauma in that it's kind of like a slow drip of constant experiences of trauma just piling on top of each other. Like there's layers and layers and layers and layers of trauma that we haven't even fully processed the first layer of trauma or made sense of it, or recovered from it, or healed from it, or just like bounced back from it. And then there's another layer of trauma. And now we're trying to deal with two different types of trauma. And before we can figure that out, there's another layer of trauma and another and another and another. And it just overwhelmed. It's like we're buried or suffocated with more and more and more trauma. That experiencing just one traumatic experience usually is already overwhelming for the brain and the mind to figure out and sort through and process. But then there's another, and there's another, and there's another, and there's another. And it's just like ongoing and constant layers and layers of trauma. One of my colleagues talked about this as the octopus of trauma, that there's all these tentacles of different types of trauma, and we're like trying to keep our eye on one of them, but there's another one that gets us and like sticks to us and holds on to us, and there's just too many moving parts when we experience layers and layers of different types of trauma, and they all intersect with each other, and it just becomes overwhelming. It can feel like an octopus has gotten a hold of us and is suffocating us, like we're living in a war zone and we can't identify who the enemy is. So complex trauma really can hijack us and our nervous system and our brain's ability to process information, process adversity, really can overwhelm us. And when it does, this is what results in complex PTSD, which I've covered in depth in other videos, but as a quick recap, complex PTSD is an add-on diagnosis for regular PTSD. And regular PTSD includes 4 symptom clusters, the first of which is intrusions and re-experiencing the nightmares and the flashbacks. The second is a sense of arousal and reactivity. This is the difficulty concentrating, the looking over your shoulder, the hyperarousal, the irritability. The third symptom cluster of PTSD is about avoidance and numbing. The fourth is about negative beliefs and negative moods, blaming ourselves and having distorted beliefs about the world, or feeling like we're stuck in one emotion constantly. So you've got these 4 symptoms of PTSD, and then you've got 3 more add-on symptoms of complex PTSD. And the 3 add-ons are a disrupted sense of self, feeling like we're a failure, that we're worthless. The second is difficulty with emotions, either feeling completely shut down and blocked off, numb emotionally, or feeling like once we get in touch with emotions, we can't calm ourselves down. We're just completely get steamrolled by the emotions and overwhelmed by them. And the third area of complex PTSD is difficulty with relationships. So feeling like we really want to be in relationships, but not feeling safe in relationships because of past relational trauma, or feeling like we're going to be betrayed or abandoned or rejected again. So this is the difference between complex PTSD and regular PTSD. Now, both versions of post-traumatic stress really require compassion. Compassion for ourselves and compassion from others. That PTSD and CPTSD are unique diagnoses in that they're less focused on something being wrong with you and more focused on that something happened to you, that some adversity that you experienced is causing the current symptoms that you're experiencing. So while diagnoses can be pathologizing at times, they also can be really validating in that they help us make sense of our experience. They often articulate for us or give us words to describe what we've been experiencing but haven't been able to fully explain to somebody else before. And they also provide us with a sense of community, a sense of normalization, realizing that what we have experienced isn't completely uncommon and that we're not the only one, and that thousands and thousands of other people have and are experiencing the same thing. And that maybe we can find community with others and peer support and mutual aid with others also experiencing complex PTSD symptoms. And it's also important to remember that healing is possible, that trauma is not a lifelong sentence, that we see people heal from trauma and from complex PTSD on a regular basis. So I want to encourage you to leave a comment on the video. Let us know what you learned in this video, or what you think was missing from this video, or what you found most helpful in your own journey of healing from complex trauma and complex PTSD.